Just a few questions, Mr. President. Thank you very much. So the gentleman yield.
Yes, Mr.
I
President.
wasn't going to ask questions, but considering the fact that there are many senators that have already become concerned over this deal, including the one among the armed forces of the Philippines, where they have control over satellite towers, Mr. President, I am forced to ask some questions. Because of all these questions raised by other senators, including Senator Recto, Senator Rizal Ontiveros, and others, there obviously is a national security concern here. You have given our grid, although 40% it appears, to a foreign corporation that has interests that collide with our country in the West Philippine Sea. And that obviously has hegemonic ambitions. Mag-ambitious sila sa Asia, all over the world. And certainly the Philippines is in a strategic location that in Asia, the Asia-Pacific area. Next to China, very near, and certainly we have a Chinese population here. And if I put it all together, may pogo kayo dito ngayon na maybe 100,000 to 200,000, say, some say 800,000 people. And if I have to believe my staff, and I don't really quite, I told them to research it. Wala may pogo doon sa mga tabi ng ports. To me, there are signals that indicate to me that we are opening ourselves to a very serious situation. Kanina sinabi niya, you can, I'm sure in the contract there's arbitration. Is that correct? There is arbitration.
Yes, Mr. President. Under the concession agreement. Mr.
Yeah,
President.
but if push comes to shove, they can always say, we can say, okay, let's stop this. We want to change it. They say no, and then they say, well, we want you to stop it. The classic analogy I remember is Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro wanted to kick out the bases in Guantanamo, and the Americans said, make me. Make me. Kaya nyo, they make me. So my question is simple, proceeding from all these things that I've said. Ito ba dinidiscuss sa cabinet? Pinag-usapan ba ito sa cabinet na, Mr. President, I think we're in a very precarious situation. It may not be proximate, but siguro dapat we should get a little bit more purchase in the contract so that hindi naman tayo madidihado, especially since our national defense is practically one of the weakest in Asia, and we have to really speed up our capability. So, my question is, pinag-uusapan ba ito o pinag-uusapan ang national defense? Nag-express ba ng concern dito? Are there other people who express concern? Certainly, I'm expressing concern in a very frank and direct way. So, meron ba?
Mr. President, I was advised by the good secretary that in fact they do discuss the transmission line operations in light of national security.
That's good.
Mr. President, and discussed this matter a few times. I do agree that when this was privatized in 2009, the geopolitical situation then is much different than the geopolitical situation now. And I was advised that they do discuss this matter on a regular basis, Mr. President.
And when was the last time this question was done? If you can express it.
Okay, just to give the direct answer, Mr. President, at the national security cluster, it's discussed every week. In fact, last Tuesday, this was discussed. But with the President was last October, Mr. President.
Obviously, our military should be watching this. Developments here. Obviously, the economic planners should be watching this regularly. Now, my question is, did they install over and above power lines? Did they install dark fiber on top of these lines?
Mr. President, I was advised by the Transco President that there is dark fiber installed.
And is that within the contract? I don't think so, but I can be persuaded to think otherwise.
But, Mr. President, they are allowed to enter into other businesses, Mr. President.
Other businesses of a strategic nature, like data line transmission, communication lines, isn't that of vital interest to our country? They can not only shut off the power, they can also listen to our conversations. Would that be correct? I can see many of the DOE nodding their heads. I don't know if they're saying, please finish so we can go home.
Yes, well, Mr. President, they can put telecommunications facility there, but they have to be, Transco should be advised, and
Has Transco been advised?
There is existing fiber optic for this kind.
Have they been confronted if they have been advised? Para tuloy-tuloy na. Sagutin nyo na lahat yan.
I think, Mr. President, Transco was not advised. No.
So there is a violation of the contract.
Yes, Mr. President.
And has that been communicated to the cabinet or to the cabinet cluster concerned?
Yes, Mr. President. In fact, there is a arbitration.
Yeah, we're in arbitration.
There is an arbitration case being heard right now between Transco and the concessionaire, Mr.
And
President.
what are the deadlines for this arbitration case?
It's an ongoing
Maybe this
case.
year,
Mr.
maybe
President.
next year, maybe never?
2021 first quarter is the target.
Twen- 2021 is the target for the
2021.
judgment, Mr.
Now, Your
President.
Honor, you're aware, of course, that ZTE is running this fiber. Is it correct to say that? ZTE and Huawei?
They cannot ascertain, Mr. President.
We cannot ascertain.
Uh,
Then we should suspend the budget of DOE because you cannot ascertain something of a strategic nature. I'm not kidding.
Mr. President, I think one of the issues surrounding that arbitration is the periodic inspection and audit that should be conducted by Transco, Mr. President.
At pinapabayaan ba kayo? Makakapag-audit kayo regularly? Nakakapasok ba kayo doon?
Not periodic, Mr. President, and also not
Periodic, as I know
extensive.
it, monthly. Di ba?
Extensive.
Monthly. If you want to talk about women, monthly. Di ba?
Not extensive and not periodic inspection and audit, Mr. President. That's
Monthly,
what Transco would request and mandate, Mr. President.
And is there difficulty getting in?
Yes, Mr. President.
There
Yes,
is.
Mr. President.
So Transco is not happy.
Yes, Mr. President. And the arbitration is a clear indication that there are conflicts between the concessionaire and the Transco.
Is there any foresight or any guesswork being undertaken, supposing this becomes a very difficult situation between two parties and we're no longer happy? What are we looking off down the throat?
Well, Mr. President, the Good Secretary recommends that the oversight powers of Congress should be exercised, and all of this will be reported to Congress. And if warrant, since Congress issued the franchise, Congress has the power also to revoke the franchise if there
So
are
they're
violations.
passing the buck to us.
No, Mr. President, it's part of the oversight. It's part of oversight.
Well, oversight is oversight. We look over it, but you can do it directly because you're the line agency.
No, there is a limitation on the concession agreement.
What? You entered into a contract, and then when the contract is not being properly undertaken, you don't go to Congress and cry uncle. You write a letter to them and you say you're violating the contract. You don't go to the Congress.
I think, Mr. President, it's the extensiveness of their audit and inspection, Mr. President. And that's why part of the action plan is to request from Congress to conduct an oversight. No?
But let me be more specific and probing. Is it the fact that when you go in there are Chinese supervisors that are going to stop you? Not going to let you go in and take a look at everything?
I was advised earlier that Filipinos are now in full control and
But why are
has
they having a hard
management
time
of
kung pareho
this.
tayong Pinoy na makikiusap doon?
I think it's the company policy, Mr. President. So
Really? I don't think I believe you guys. I think there are Chinese still running that place. Would that be accurate?
the good secretary told me that it's not the Chinese who's managing that.
The
Although they
systems-
are a 40% shareholder, Mr.
And from the
President.
very beginning, the systems were in Chinese. They changed all the instructions in Chinese. They had Chinese engineers running it. And then you want us to believe that that has all been changed, that now everybody understands everything that is written down there and that we can take over anytime, and you say 24 hours, you can turn it on? If they sabotage it, you can turn it on?
Yes, Mr. President, that is the technical advice of the transmission of
Who in
Transco.
particular gave that advice?
The President of Transco, Mr. President.
Really now? Are we sure that they can turn it on right away?
That's what they advised me, Mr. President.
Well, my question is, I'm rather astounded that we can do that, but my real concern really is if the Chinese are still in the area, and they are, and if they have fiber optic cable control, isn't that the same as CTE contract that was thwarted here last time? I remember I investigated that at the Blue Ribbon. I remember. So what they couldn't get from the front door, they got from the back door. National broadband backbone.
Well, Mr. President, that's also one of the issues, no, in the arbitration, whether these related businesses are well accounted for, Mr. President.
I still have a lot of questions, but I'm going to throw it down the wastebasket because I think I've made up my mind already. We are not in control. If you cannot go into that company, and if your countrymen are saying, no, you can't, because the Chinese are overseeing us, we are not in control. Diba? Right? Because the rules say that, oh, we will be fired. No. The contract says we can have visitation powers. But if we cannot do that, then the Chinese are in control. And that must be communicated right away to the decision makers of this country, and that we should really amend the contract right away or boot them out. That would be the best way to do it, wouldn't it?
Thank you. Thank you to the good gentleman from Zambales for raising this issue. Again, the energy families here, and the points are well taken. And the president of the transmission of Transco is in constant constantly finding ways to exercise its supervision and audit, Mr. President.
My final take on this is I would advise all of us here to make sure that we look at how the Chinese operate all over the world right now. Now that they have discovered that they have the cloud, they have the power of money, they have the power of, in my table there is a jet there of the Chinese that they claim is very, very powerful and can match American planes. And if they're able to do that, then we better be prepared to be able to make sure that we can stand up to them. But we should stand up to them early enough, and we should be prepared to have a game plan so that when they leave, we can take over. Di ba?
The president of Transco agrees 100% with your advice, and I've
Who's the
already...
president of Transco?
Attorney Melvin Matibag.
He's from Ateneo, right?
He's from, I don't know which...
Obviously, he's got good judgment.
Good.
And
He's,
the chairman of
smiling
the
from ear to ear,
Secretary-
Mr. President.
And the Secretary of Energy is from LaSalle, right?
Salva.
But his children are all from Ateneo. He's made up for it already. Just kidding. But anyway, we're all friends here. But really, we have to express our deep concern and alarm. Because hindi na nakuha sa CTE last time, nakuha nila ngayon. Tapos ngayon, hawak pa nila yung ating kuryente. I am reminded of what William Shakespeare said. I was going to say William Spearshake. And that is, if you hold them by the balls, their hearts and minds are sure to follow. Let us remember that, because that is what is happening to our country right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. And point well taken. Again, the Energy family will immediately convene and discuss this matter, Mr. President. Thank you.